All right, thanks, Duncan. Good morning or good afternoon, evening, everybody, right? Jim Carrey, good morning, good evening, and good night. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've been really looking forward to doing this webinar today, kind of going over the compound breakout tool and profit recycling strategy. It's certainly been helping me quite a bit in this volatile market that we've seen recently. And so I really wanted to introduce it to those who are maybe new to it, rediscuss it for those of you who might be familiar with it. I certainly see both some new faces and some familiar ones here tonight. So thank you so much for joining me. And let's go ahead and get started and talk about this and see how you too might be able to make $1,000 a week based off this trading plan, right? So just like I mentioned, my name is Allison Ostrander. I'm the Director of Risk Tolerance here at Simpler Trading. And I'm really looking forward to talking about several of these points tonight, right? So what you'll discover on tonight's webinar. Of course, we'll be talking about how to generate 1K a week with less than 25K, right? So it's great for those of you in smaller accounts. And of course, those with you in larger accounts, it's never a bad time to make 1K a week, right? I'm going to talk about my secret for consistently picking no-risk trades, how I'm able to lock in profits and reduce capital risk so it's not being held overnight. My strategy for turning volatility into profits, perfect for this kind of market, right? We have these tweets going on, we have trade deals going on and off, Brexit, and it's been kind of a crazy market, certainly a crazy year, and this is a great strategy to use during that time to lock in some overall money for your account. I'm going to introduce the profit recycling strategy and also give an introduction to the compound breakout tool as well. So just to kind of talk about it for a second, this profit recycling strategy I have used and I have continued to modify and make better. But one of the benefits of this, right, you can see here this very volatile market that we had back in 2016, right? Kind of similar to what we've seen now where we saw a sharp downturn, kind of like we did at the end of last year, some choppiness, and then a move back up. And it certainly might have faked some people out during that time. Certainly if you're long here, you would have been hurting in your account. Maybe you got out of all your longs at the low, and then you would have been kicking yourself afterwards. But during this time, I was actually able to use this strategy, keep my risk very low, and grew my account from $10,000 to over $43,000 using the profit recycling strategy mainly. And it took me about 3 months to do that. So it didn't take me very long. The most I ever had invested at one point was about $7,000 at a time. And that was when I was closer to that $43,000 profit, right? So very nice way to grow your account. I started off very small, compounded those profits together, and ended up walking away with a very nice profit at the end of 3 months. And just to show you that it's viable to use today, this is actually a trade that I took 2 days ago. So it was a bit more of a swing trade, but I used the profit recycling strategy along with the compound breakout tool. And today I was able to guarantee myself $155 per contract, right? That's the minimum amount that I'm going to walk away with on this trade. So had I opened 10 contracts, that's $1,550 minimum that I've guaranteed for myself by taking the action I did today using the profit recycling strategy. It was a minimum so far of a 77% return on my original capital risk, right? So I've already locked in a minimum of 77% return on that risk. My max profit potential based on this free trade that I've now created, right? This overall minimum profit of $155 per contract, I have an extra bonus of a 203% return on this trade depending on how it goes into tomorrow. So I've locked in a nice profit per contract. I've guaranteed that for myself for my account. I've recycled the risk back into my account, and now I basically have a bonus trade out there for tomorrow. So we're going to discuss more about that. But it just shows how even in today's market, just the last few days, I've been able to take that profit and lock it in for my account. Here is the compound breakout tool. We'll talk about this a bit more. But this was the bullish signal that I ended up taking 3 days ago. And like I said, ended up working out quite nicely for just a short move. And Drew, yes, the risk is off when the profit's locked in. We'll certainly talk about that. So let's go ahead and get started. I see some questions in here. We'll certainly answer them throughout the webinar tonight. I will hold a Q&A afterwards. So if you don't feel like your question's been answered, certainly re-ask it at the end and I'll be happy to help you out there. So just a little bit about myself, for those of you who are not familiar with me. I actually started my trading journey fresh out of college with a BFA in theater performance. So I have no financial background whatsoever. The most I knew about the market was you buy low and you sell high, right? That's the basis of what I knew about trading. And of course, maybe the movie from Wall Street back in the 80s, right? Or Wolf of Wall Street more recently. So I was kind of intrigued about the idea of trading, and I thought it might be a great way to support myself while pursuing a career in theater. And my dad was the one who actually introduced me to the idea of trading. And when he started talking about it a bit more, it certainly sounds a lot better than waiting tables, right? It seemed like a way that I could do it on my own time schedule, right? I don't have to go in for shifts or necessarily deal with other people. And it sounded like it might be a little bit more profitable than hoping I get a good tip, right? So it's definitely piqued my interest. So my dad was actually looking to further his options trading education at the time. He had been trading for quite a while, but he wanted to dive further into the whole aspect of options. And he actually wanted us 3 kids to learn. I have an older sister and a younger brother. He was trying to get us all on board with learning how to trade. He thought it'd be, a wise investment to kind of have in our toolbox for the rest of our lives. And I was the only one who kind of hopped on board with it. I was like, yeah, this sounds, right up my alley. If it's a way that I can support myself and still kind of do what I want in life, I'm all for it, right? So when he introduced the idea, he kind of wanted to see if I would take on and really try and educate myself. So, I started self-educating. I attended webinars myself. And I started paper trading, and I made $10,000 in paper trading to kind of prove, hey, I have an idea of what I'm doing. I'm able to make some money. Let's dive in a bit further and see what education I can do and see if I can't start trading real money from there. So I dove deeper into the education and got some one-on-one coaching. And that's when I started to trade live money. And on my first real money trade, I ended up completely recouping all of my coaching fees that I had set up. So all those one-on-one coaching fees were covered. And I ended up walking away with a very decent profit all on that first trade. And once that hit me, right, that adrenaline went up and I was hooked, and trading soon became a second passion of mine on top of theater, and it's something that I've continued to do ever since. But there was a problem bubbling below the surface whenever I took that first trade. And that problem was that I had truly not grasped a full understanding of risk tolerance, right? How many of you have been there where you're starting off trading, you do excellent on maybe your first few trades, you think you got it all down, and then all of a sudden, that might not be the case. And for myself, I definitely had that ego, right? It was as if I was hitting the punching bag thinking I was Muhammad Ali, I was the greatest in the world, right? Greatest of all time, the GOAT. And that certainly, is beneficial sometimes in trading, but if you don't have a grasp of risk tolerance, it can end up hurting you later. So it's happened to a few of you as well. So maybe this happened to you as well, hopefully not. But I know that when I went into the ring and took that first knockout, I was stunned, right? When I took that first loss in my account, I was just shocked. I didn't understand how I could lose that much money. And that is when I decided to take an extensive investigation into my trading and discovered a few different things, right? So I kind of took a step back, looked at my prior trades, looked at my trading journal, and kind of went and dove into it to see what I was doing right and maybe what I was doing wrong to try and make sure that I didn't take this big of a loss again for my account. And so as I did my investigation, there were a few things that were negative to me that came to trading, right? Some of the negative aspects I found about trading were oftentimes my eyes were glued to the charts and futures long after market close, right? I was keeping a track on China's market. I was keeping a track on Europe's market. I was looking at all the other world markets to see how they were doing. I was looking at pre-market symbols for SPX, for Amazon to see how they were trading after hours. And oftentimes I was so glued to that I would end up with a lack of sleep, right? Because not only am I keeping an eye on things, but I would start to get stressed out about how many trades I had on, and I would constantly be trying to monitor them to guess what is going to happen the next market day, right? Does anyone else have that problem too, where they just continue to watch pre-markets? Certainly in earnings season, I know it's still a habit I fall into. Yeah, so I can see that. And then, of course, you know, when you have a lack of sleep, when you're constantly looking at futures and everything else, your emotions start guiding your trading instead of the technicals, right? That's kind of, we want the technicals to guide us, not our emotions. When our emotions do, that's when we end up risking more typically, and that's when we end up putting on dumb trades that the technicals aren't really lining up with. And in turn, of course, that leads to staggering losses, right? That's exactly what we don't want in trading, you know? And so I found those were the negative things I kept running into. And so I knew that there had to be a solution to getting out of this dark side of trading. And I realized that all of the issues ended up stemming from one source for myself, and that was capital risk. And in turn, it was what my own personal risk tolerance was. And definitely for those of you who answered yes, that you might be similar to, you know, fretting how many positions you have on or continuing to check futures, I certainly suggest looking and taking a closer look at your capital risk and your personal risk tolerance. For myself, that lack of understanding of capital risk fed into all my negative thoughts about trading. And of course, as those negative thoughts build up, that's what's feeding that dark side, right? That's what's feeding the dark side of the force. And that's not what we want. We want to do well in our trading. We want to stay on the light side. And I realized that by not having this full grasp on capital risk, it was, of course, causing my emotions to guide my trading, because for every loss I took, you know, I might end up blindly going into a new trade thinking, okay, I'll just put more in. It will easily make up this loss and it will definitely work for me. And instead of letting it be technical, you know, I was just putting in the trade, just saying, okay, here it goes. Hopefully it will work out. And, you know, hopium doesn't necessarily make you money, right? It's the technicals, it's being, you know, methodic, it's kind of leaving those emotions out of it is what makes you a better trader. And Christina, you know, I've been there too with the losses on almost giving up with trading, and, you know, kind of being in a tumble where you feel like every trade that you put on ends up losing and you don't want to lose anymore, right? So I've certainly been there emotionally. But as I continued to focus on risk and I started to make that my main focus around trading, I ended up doing better overall. So each trade I took constantly had me analyzing my risk versus reward, not only on just the individual trade, but as well as my overall account. And the more I focused on this, the more I started to determine what my risk tolerance was for my account and how I ended up developing my 25% rule for account management. This benefited me quite a bit in keeping my capital risk low, from never over investing in my account, and still leaving capital out there to not only manage trades, but to also end up paying myself, right? If you're using trading as more of a job, right, you need to pay yourself each month, the 25% rule is a great way to be able to do that, and make sure that you're not over investing your capital or have too many trades on at one time. And by doing all this, it ended up leading me towards the discovery of the profit recycling strategy, right, which is a phenomenal way to reduce your capital risk each night or to overall have lower capital risk in your account. And it also led me to discovering the compound breakout tool and kind of creating that, which helped me on better entries and exits, as well as how long to stay maybe in or out of a trade. So the brighter side, right? So with this understanding, there was no more dark side of trading for me. I joined the light side of the force, if you will. I really started to enjoy trading once again. I was creating a great way to support myself and the other things I wanted to do in life, right? I was able to kind of create my own time schedule. If I had to step away that market day, I was easily able to do that. And I was still able to consistently make profits to support myself in the things I wanted to do. And so my hope is by introducing you to the same strategy and tools that I have found so useful, you too can also notice a positive shift in your trading as well. That's my whole goal tonight for this webinar. So let's talk about the strategy some, right? The profit recycling strategy, a new way to look at trading options. So what is profits recycling? Well, it's an option strategy that is primarily used to take advantage of intraday movements within the markets. Now, as my first example already showed, you can also use this on swing trades, but it's also an excellent way to take advantage of intraday moves, especially for those of you who might have smaller accounts, right? Because it technically does not trigger any day trading rules. So when we get really volatile markets like we've seen recently, where the SPX moves, 20, 50 points within a day, when Amazon moves, close to 100 points within a day or something like that, this is an excellent strategy to be able to use and be mindful of your risk while at the same time taking advantage of these situations and locking in some profits for your account. So who's the profit recycling strategy for, right? It's for traders who like to keep risk low. If you don't like to hold risk overnight, if you rather have that capital back into your account overnight, if it's an intraday style trade or within a few days of a swing trade, this is the strategy for you. It's for anyone who trades options and has had problems with capital or over-investing in the past, right? So if you're one who likes to put on a lot of trades and then find out that your cash buying power is almost to zero, this is definitely a strategy I would recommend looking at because it's a great way of keeping your buying power high, but still having those trades out there to benefit you. And of course, this strategy is great for building small accounts, kind of like I mentioned. It can also be implemented in larger accounts. I've traded it in multiple size accounts in the past, but I really do want to emphasize it's great for small accounts because, like I said, you're able to take advantage of the intraday movements without day trading. So for those who have $25,000 accounts or less, where you can't make more than 3 day trades a week, this is a great strategy to implement and bypass those rules, kind of get over that hurdle, and still be able to lock in profits in your account because you're never technically day trading when you're using this strategy. So what is the best type of market condition? Well, the strategy can be used technically in any type of market. I've used it in trending markets before successfully, and I've also used it in volatile markets like we've seen recently. And I have to say, it's definitely an excellent strategy to use in volatile markets where there's a bit more choppiness or there's a bit more wider ranges. And, oftentimes people get a little bit more nervous when the VIX gets high. But I gotta say, when the VIX is high, I know that this is the strategy to implement because the VIX being high is my friend when using this strategy. It's a great way to lock in bigger profits or profits more quickly or both. So what account size do you need? Well, this is a wonderful strategy for traders with smaller accounts, like I've mentioned. A part of the reason I developed this strategy is actually because I went from trading big accounts. I helped manage some of my family accounts, and they, had larger retirement accounts and things like that. And so I was used to trading a bigger size account, and then all of a sudden I started trading some smaller accounts too, and I found that this strategy needed to be implemented if I wanted to look for similar returns or a similar, style of trading that I was used to in the larger accounts. So kind of what I was just discussing why I developed the profit recycling strategy was, as I mentioned, I was trading family members' accounts, and as word started to spread between the family and aunts and uncles and things like that, I ended up starting to manage some more accounts, and they ended up being of varying sizes. And my frustration started to come across whenever I couldn't day trade the smaller accounts. I've been hit with that rule where, all of a sudden it's like, hey, your account needs to get above 25,000 or you're going to have to wait the, how many ever days, the 90 days or whatever it is, for your account to be unlocked so that you can start trading again. All you can do now is close out of trades. I've been hit by that day trading rule before, and it was frustrating because I wanted to take advantage of these intraday swing moves, but I wasn't able to in these small accounts. And I was like, I know there's got to be a way to be able to do this without triggering that rule. There's got to be a way to take advantage of this volatility. And so as I talked with fellow traders about volatility, right, and watched the charts and the option chain throughout the market day, I started to discover this strategy. And it started to really excite me, right? So from there, I started to test it out, continued to develop and fine-tune the strategies, figured out what expirations worked, what deltas worked, and really back-tested it quite a bit. And I found that I was able to use the strategy quite successfully in smaller accounts from the fine-tuning, and I wasn't triggering that day trading rule. So like I said, as I was fine-tuning it, that's when I was able to take that account from the $10,000 to over $47,000 in just under 3 months. That's kind of what that chart highlighted up there at the start, right? During that big downturn and that choppiness and then bounce back up, I was taking and using this strategy all along the way, continuing to increase my account. And as I did this, I realized this was not just a way to trade small accounts, and often found myself still using the trade strategies in the bigger accounts, because who doesn't like when capital risk is recycled back into your account, right? If I don't have to have that risk out there overnight, I am certainly going to look at taking that action and keep my cash buying power high. So not only was I, doing this in the smaller accounts, which is what it started off for primarily, I often found myself still doing it in the larger accounts because I was still much happier at the end of the day, seeing that I had locked in profits, seeing that I had the majority of the capital risk back into my account, and then having these bonus trades out there to still lock in profits. So the benefits, right? Avoiding that pesky day trading rule to take advantage of intraday moves, even if you hold an account under 25K. It's great for building up and growing accounts. You immediately have the ability to recycle profits back into your account, and it creates free trades or bonus trades by having that capital recycled back in. So like I mentioned more at the start of this webinar, you can also use this on swing trades, right? That Amazon example at the start of this webinar was a swing trade. I held it for 2 days technically, and on the third day today, I recycled the risk back into my account. I guaranteed myself $155 per contract minimum, and I gave myself the potential of over a 200% return on my original capital risk with the free bonus trade I have out there. So even though I primarily use this strategy on intraday trades because that personally fits my trading style, I like taking advantage of the intraday moves, you can also use this on swing trades as well. And like I said, it solves the huge problem for bypassing that day trading rule for accounts under 25K. And this strategy can also help reduce capital risk left out overnight or over the weekend. So you're not losing sleep at night anymore by all the capital that you have out there overnight. You're not concerned about maybe a tweet going out there reversing the market, because you've already brought back in that capital risk and you've already locked in at least a minimum profit on a trade. So here are some examples of the strategy itself and combining that with the compound breakout tool. So here we start to see an intraday move down on the market. This is a 5 and 10 minute chart on SPX. We start to get bearish signals on the compound breakout tool, right? When we have 2 or all 3 of these signals print red, this is a bearish signal on the compound breakout tool. So we start to see that signal print on the 5 and 10 minute chart. So I decided to jump into a profit recycling trade very quickly, right? When less than just a few minutes, I was able to lock in a $50 profit per contract using that strategy. So worst case scenario, if I had 10 contracts out there, I'm walking away with $500 in just a few minutes time. It ended up being a minimum of a 28% return on risk. At the close, I took a second step in the profit recycling strategy and added an additional $270 per contract. So started off with $50, added on $270. So now my total was $320 per contract going into the close that day, which was 182% return on the trade. So like I said, if I had 10 contracts on this trade, that's a $3,200 profit that I took in a day. So, and keep in mind, the risk that I had out there was only for a few minutes time before I locked in that initial profit of $50 per contract. So guaranteed the profit, already had the capital risk recycled back in, and then continued to use the strategy to add on additional profits, for a very nice return at the end of the day. So another example of the profit recycling strategy, I had entered 2 different trades where a minimum of $35 per contract was taken in on those 2. I only held my risk out there for 18 minutes. So I do recall on this trade that one of them started to reverse on me on the signal. So I, locked it in quickly. So it wasn't a very big profit per contract on both trades combined. If you had only opened one, if you had opened, the 10 again, that's $350 per contract. But it was still a nice profit to lock in. I still had 0 capital risk out there. So no harm, no foul. Once again, going into the close, I increased that minimum profit to $1.15 per contract on both trades. So it went from $35 to $115 per contract. And this again was on SPX that I did this in. At the close of that day, right, because I had that bonus trade out there, at the close, because of where SPX cash settled, I ended up increasing that profit to $308 per contract on both trades combined. So once again, had you done something like 10 contracts on this trade, you would have had $350 minimum to start with. You would have increased that to $1,150 overall. And then because of the settlement on the close of that day for this bonus trade, you would have walked away with over a $3,000 profit. So you can see how that $1,000 a week becomes attainable just within maybe a day's time, depending on your contract amount, right? So SPX here was a move to the upside that we saw. Here was the signal. On this profit recycling trade, I ended up taking in, once again, this is, in this case, a 10-minute and an hourly chart. I ended up locking in $180 per contract in just a few hours. It was 100% return on my risk, and it was a max potential return at the end of the day on that bonus trade of 377% return. So worst case scenario, I had completely recouped my risk and walked away with $180 per contract. And that was the worst case scenario for that day. Best case scenario was 377% return. So as I continued using the profit recycling strategy, I realized it created more consistent signals with its trusty sidekick, the compound breakout tool. So I kind of highlighted the compound breakout tool in some of those examples for those, more intraday movements. And so now I'm going to dive into what that indicator is, right? So the compound breakout tool, right? The tools I use to trend or not to trend. That's certainly what this will help out with. So here are the tools. Before I came to simpler trading, others who saw my charts would often call them roadmaps. I had a lot of different indicators on them. It became rather cluttered, and it was certainly hard to read. I could read them, but it was hard for other people to read them as well. So how to improve these 3 powerful tools? So some of the indicators that I used on my charts at that time was a stochastics indicator, a MACD histogram, and simple moving averages. I have several on my charts that I use. The stochastics is an indicator that helps track momentum using support and resistance levels. It is this bottom indicator down here. That's the stochastics full. The MACD histogram is a study that helps determine trend changes. That's also this lower indicator here. And then, of course, the simple moving averages, for me, it is these gold orange lines on my chart. I have 3 of them up. But you can already see with some of the other indicators already used, on top of having those potential 2 lower indicators in these, it was quite a bit to have on your charts, right? You probably are already looking at this, getting completely confused on what is happening here at this point, or what you're seeing on these charts. And I completely understand. That's what I was often told whenever I was sharing my charts in the room, prior to having this indicator. So I realized that all three studies individually can be great to look at, but as some of you might be aware, right, they can lead to false signals individually, and that's always frustrating. Whenever you have an indicator that you really like, but sometimes it just kind of misleads you on the signal every now and then, and so you're like, well, how often is this really going to be viable? Is this signal going to cancel out again? Is it going to give me a false indication? But I realized when I combined these three studies and indicators together and looked for specific things on each one to line up, it helped clear up all the false signals that I was getting on them individually. So I found a way to kind of combine them all to help create a more clear signal. The issue was, though, having all those different indicators on my charts, it ended up becoming really cluttered and hard to read. It was, hard to concentrate on what was happening where. I would oftentimes be having to zoom into my charts to see whether signals were canceling out or not. And I knew there had to be a simpler way to view everything that I was looking at without having all of these studies on my chart combined. So when I joined Simpler Trading, I was introduced to the master inventor of indicators, Eric Purdy. He's the director of quantitative strategies here at Simpler Trading. He's the one who does a lot of the coding for our indicators. And I was told that if I just explained to him what I was looking for, he would be able to work his magic. And he did, right? So that's the benefit, of course, to Eric, is you don't need to be a developer. I don't need to be a developer or coder. I know, just a very small amount about coding, and it's certainly not anything for indicators on coding, right? It's maybe some like web page coding that I know minimal of from school. But you don't need to be a developer. He was the one who was able to take all the information that I gave him on what I looked for on these indicators, how they worked in combination with each other. And he was able to create this and make my charts a lot more simplified. So instead of having three different indicators with all these different signals printing, I just had one indicator that was very easy to read at the bottom of my charts. So as I mentioned, right, with their powers combined on these indicators, after telling Eric what I was looking for, he was able to create the compound breakout tool. And like I said, this tool is one of the key indicators I use on the profit recycling strategy. And yeah, he's brilliant. I'd certainly agree with that, Sherry. So the compound breakout tool, right? What does this indicator do? Well, it's used to help me determine the type of trend, whether it's bearish, bullish, or consolidating, which we'll go over here in some examples. And it's also an indicator that can be used to identify the start as well as the end of a trend. So it's a great way to identify an entry for a potential trade, as well as maybe when you need to take profits and exit out of the trade as well. So not only does it help determine the trend, it helps determine when to jump in and when to jump out of the trade. So the compound breakout tool can be used on any time frame. I take this indicator into consideration both on intraday movements as well as long-term swing trades. So I really do love this indicator. You'll often hear me talk about it in the training room or in the options room. But I love how it can be used on the intraday moves for the profit recycling strategy on these volatile market days. But I also love how it can be used for longer term portfolio picks in your accounts, either on a daily, weekly, or even in a monthly time frame on when to jump into a trade. So here's an example of a bullish trend on Hershey's. For those of you who have been in the options room or in the end-of-day stock picking session, you know Hershey's has been my pick several times for a bullish trade idea. And you can see here why on the weekly chart. Back here, all the way back in, I believe it was February going into March of this year on the weekly time frame, we started to print a bullish signal on the compound breakout tool. A bullish signal is when you have two, if not all three, of these lines printing a green signal. And it will continue to print these dots to show that it remains a valid signal. So here we have 2 out of the 3 printing. That tells me this is a bullish trend starting to happen. And until it gets canceled out by a red dot, it's still a valid signal. So for myself, I had taken multiple, smaller term swing trades on Hershey's, but had I jumped in at the very start of when the signal printed back in February and March, you can see here, nothing has told me yet to get out of this trade. And on Hershey's itself, we've seen a move from below 110 all the way up to above 160. And like I said, nothing right now is telling me, hey, I need to consider closing out and taking profits. So whether you're in shares of this, whether you're in a leap or something like that, you're still rocking this trade and seeing a nice green number in your account. And you know that you don't have to get out of it as of yet to protect those profits, unless it, of course, hit your good till cancel like mine did. Here's an example of a bearish trend, right? So on SRCL, this is on a daily chart. We can see here multiple times from last year into this year, we had bearish signals to the downside. Here, we had 2 or 3 of the signals print on the compound breakout tool. When they're red boxes going into dots, that means it's a valid signal to the downside. And you can see here, we moved lower. We technically had a second signal print here, still to the downside. All 3 signals printed this time. When you get all 3 signals print, you get a little triangle at top. So that's just, to me, even a better confirmation when all 3 are in line with each other to jump in and go short, right? I want at least 2 of the 3 to be in line, but if all 3 are in line, better signal to jump in on. And you can see here, excellent move to the downside. Just this year, too, after earnings, we started to get a bearish signal for a move lower. And you can see this also continued in a bearish trend to the downside. Now, some of you might be saying, well, you had this bullish signal here. And I'll definitely explain this more in the live trading. But when you get a bullish signal on a bearish trend, it's first telling you, hey, I'm moving up to test resistance. So that's why you might have considered taking your profits here. You can see it tested the 10-period simple as resistance. It held it. And then we started to move lower. And we also got a second signal to look at going short again to the downside there. So it's a great indicator, like I said, when to maybe consider taking profits, when we might be going back up and retracing some or retesting a resistance or support level in the case of a trending signal, and then potentially when to jump back in again. So SPX here, as we know, SPX recently, this is a daily chart from just a few days ago. We know that it's been in a choppy range recently, right? It's been in a volatile range with highs around 290, 29.40, lows around 28.50, 28.25, and we've just been kind of chopping in that range ever since and consolidating. Well, the compound breakout tool would have told you that's exactly what's happening. Whenever you see the signal print back to back and red and green boxes, even if it's 2 signals, if it immediately gets canceled out the next day, like we did here, right, and you see them continue to print back to back, this is a sign of consolidation. So when you only have 1 signal printing, or even when you maybe have a valid signal, but it immediately gets canceled out the next day, and maybe see that continue to print back to back, that is a sign of consolidation. So this is a great sign that when you see consolidation occurring, you want to look at a different strategy, right? You want to consider non-directional strategies like butterflies, iron condors, to take advantage of that market. And the dots on the up and down side are just an easy way to tell you that a bearish or bullish signal is still valid. So here, a bearish signal was valid, right? We had 2 or more indicators printing. Here, a bullish signal is valid. We had 2 or more indicators printing. And like I said, when all 3 print, you then end up getting a triangle saying, hey, all 3 are printing, it's a go. If you're not in it, based off the 2, definitely consider jumping in when all 3 appear. So the best part about the compound breakout tool is once you upload it, you don't need to do anything. There's nothing else you need to change, right? The most that you might want to change are the colors. If you're colorblind or something like that, you can easily change them from red to green, which is what they automatically start with, to maybe, purple and yellow, or, whatever colors you want, you can change them to where you can decipher it. But otherwise, there's nothing else you need to do. There's nothing else you need to tweak in the internals. It's good to go. Eric did an excellent job creating this indicator. So once it's added to your charts, it's easy peasy from there. No need to change anything else. So now we're going to go into some examples of how I've used the compound breakout tool to lock in profits. So this was actually an earnings trade. But here, the compound breakout tool gave you an early clue that we might see a bounce up on earnings. Now, of course, anything can happen around earnings trades. I always talk about them as lotto trades in the room. But I still sometimes like jumping into them if I'm seeing a good signal going into that announcement. And here, just a few days prior to the news, we started to print a valid bullish signal on the compound breakout tool. So I decided to go ahead and jump in a lotto style trade here to hold through earnings. And you can see we had an excellent gap to the upside. And so I ended up locking in a $522 profit per contract on this trade. That is a 181% return on my capital risk. So excellent signal that we got prior to earnings, ended up printing through it. Earnings had that nice gap to the upside, so it followed through on the signal that we got with the compound breakout tool. And I locked in a very nice profit on a bullish trade. Excellent risk versus reward return on it, and then recycled that capital back into my account. And you'll notice here we started to cancel out of it a bit, and the price moved back down and just went into consolidation of this range. So it also told me, hey, you might consider taking that quick profit and locking it in. We might be stalling out here some. And this was on, of course, a daily chart. So on McDonald's, another example here, this is a weekly time frame. On this one, we had a nice bullish signal print back here in April. Had you gotten in just based off this signal alone, it wasn't until recently that it got canceled out. And even then, you can see nice trending view of McDonald's. And much like we just discussed, right? When you see a bearish signal on the compound breakout tool, but you're in a very strong bullish trend, it's first telling you, hey, I might be going back down to test resistance. And right now, we're testing the 10 period simple as resistance. So if this holds and we start to cancel out of this signal and print a bullish signal once again, that's a good sign that it's going to continue to the upside. So, and as I mentioned, these dots here are just letting you know, hey, 2 of the 3 signals are printing and it's continuing to remain a valid signal. So it's just extra clarification. And when all 3 print, that's when you get the triangle saying go. If you haven't already gone in here, definitely look at maybe entering at that point, right? So nice. For me, this was a shorter term day trade. Not a day trade, a shorter term swing trade, I should say. I only held it for a few days. But it triggered my good till cancel, so I was happy taking that $300 per contract and bringing that money back into my account. CDNA, this one's based off of a daily chart here. So we ended up locking in $500 per contract, right? So that's just based off one contract, guys. So if you did 5 contracts on this trade, you would have walked away with $2,500 of profit on this CDNA trade. It was an 89% return on my capital risk. And you can see here we had 2 signals start to print and then all 3 print here and remain valid, and we had a nice bounce to the upside. Even if you had waited for all 3 signals to print, you still would have had an excellent move higher to lock in these profits. SPX, now, like I said, this was the most recent chart on the daily chart that we've seen here from when I was creating this webinar and this slide. And you can see here, right, consolidation. That's what we've been in recently. We've been just in a wide, choppy range. And so I decided to put on a non-directional trade. I put on a butterfly, and I played within this choppy range. Now for myself on SPX, sometimes I'll let it go into cash settlement into the close that day because it will cash settle. But in this case, I decided to go ahead and put a good till cancel out there and just try and lock in a profit. And for my butterfly, I ended up walking away with a $470 profit per contract, right? Once again, that's, if you're only opening 1 contract, that's still $470 you're walking away with. For myself, that was a 204% return on my capital risks. So excellent risk versus reward. I almost doubled my profit on what my original capital risk was. At the same time, though, I kind of kicked myself on this one. But had I actually let this one go into settlement on the close that day, it closed not too far off from my pin strike. And if I had let it go into the close, I would have actually walked away with a $1,700 profit per contract. So once again, if you had only opened the one contract, you would have walked away with $1,700 that day. That would have been a 539% return on capital risk, right? Excellent small risk versus a substantial reward that you're locking into your trade here. So not a bad trade to jump into. And keep in mind, what was our trending signal here? It was of consolidation. So you don't need it to be, you know, just a long call or a long debit call vertical spread, or vice versa, a long put or long debit put vertical spread, right? You don't need it to be a directional trade to make money with this tool. This tool can also tell you, hey, consider some non-directional trades right now, and you can still walk away with excellent profits for your account. So once again, on that Hershey's example, we talked about, you know, the weekly chart. I mentioned that I've jumped into this trade on a few different swing trades. And in total, so far for my account, I've locked in $452 per contract, right? On taking these small term swing trades based off a daily chart and keeping in line with the bullish trend happening here on a daily chart. I know the weekly chart's only here, but on the daily chart, I would look for breakout signals to the upside. And when I got those on the compound breakout tool, and I knew the longer term trend was still bullish, that's when I would jump in, I would set a good till cancel, and I'd lock in a quick profit. So I took several of those throughout this time. And so far on Hershey's, I've ended up with 87% return on the max capital risk I had out there at one point. So not a bad profit to have locked in on Hershey's along the way this year. SPX, here is a 1 hour chart. So this was a profit recycling intraday style trade that I do. I know somebody asked about what option expiration I use. For myself, I typically use same or next day expiration on SPX. They're very near-term expirations to keep capital costs low on my original entry. And I'm still able to take profits based on those volatile moves. If you go further out in time, you can certainly still look at taking profits. It's just more capital risk you're putting out there for the day. So for myself, I like to use the shorter dated option entries, but you can also use this on longer ones too. And so here we got the signal on the 1 hour chart to look at going bearish, right? All three signals printed. We had the triangle print. This was an excellent sign to look at going short. And in less than an hour, I had locked in $100 per contract into the trade. It was a 35% minimum return on risk with up to a 285% maximum return on that bonus trade. So minimum, I was still walking away with a 35%, no matter where it ended up closing and settling that day. But if, you know, it worked favorably to me, I have the max profit potential on the bonus trade of a 285% return. So not a bad risk versus reward there. On KMX, this was a daily chart, had a bullish signal here. I ended up walking away with a $510 profit per contract, a 91% return on my capital risk. You can see here, KMX started to move to the upside. Now, not only on this trade, I'll note that I based this off the daily chart, but I also based this off the monthly time frame. Like I said, this can be great for longer term trades and to identify maybe when to stay in versus not. On the monthly time frame, because this was a longer term trade at the time, you can see here, still printing a bullish signal even into today on KMX. You can see here, excellent move that we've seen so far to the upside in CarMax. So the monthly chart was still telling me things are looking long on CarMax. For myself, it had, you know, hit my target that I was looking for. I was very happy to walk away with over $500 per contract and locking that in based on my capital risk. But of course, depending on the expiration or the time I had built into this, or if I was in shares of KMX, right now this still is telling me, hey, no need to get out of this yet, still looks bullish. So kind of what we covered, we talked about how I can generate 1K a week with less than 25,000 in my accounts, you know, using those profit recycling strategies or shorter term, you know, swing trades based on just the compound breakout tool. I've talked about my secret for consistently picking no risk trades, right? That profit recycling strategy. Using that strategy is what helps guarantee and lock in profits without recycling or keeping that risk out there overnight. Instead, it recycles it back into my account. So like I said, those minimum amounts of profits was what I was walking away with at the end of the day. No matter what, no matter how that trade did, I was walking away with that minimum profit guaranteed in my account. I talked about my strategy for turning volatility into profits. We kind of just went through SPX, right? Very volatile market with the recent tweets, with the trade talks going on and off just within the past month. And I showed you how you can still take profits both on the intraday moves as well as the longer time frame. I introduced you both to the profit recycling strategy and the compound breakout tool. So what's next, right? Well, I know blowing out your account can be frustrating and disheartening, right? I've certainly talked with other traders who have done that. I've certainly had my fair share of losses when I first started trading, which is what helped me develop this strategy and this tool. And it can be disheartening. It can be emotionally hurting to you. And sometimes even the most seasoned traders, can still have problems with risk tolerance, can still be emotional with their trading. And, it's really unfortunate that ends up being the case. And everyone, of course, could use a little bit of extra clarification on the chart and narrowing down great entries and exits. So because of that, I know there's so much more I could cover here and that I would like to cover. But unfortunately, we have a limited amount of time to do that. So I could really dive into how this strategy works with the strikes, with the deltas, and dive in a bit more into the fine aspects of it. But it would just take too much time, right? I wouldn't be able to fit it all within an hour. And I don't want to give you a small amount of knowledge to have you be dangerous with it, right? I want you to have that full education. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the profit recycling strategy, I do have a class available out there that is available in the store currently right now for $6.97. But I want to offer it at a special deal so that way you guys can really benefit on being able to use it, right? And be able to use it immediately if you purchase the class. And that's with the combo package. So if you don't have the compound breakout tool, if you don't have the profit recycling class, you can sign up today and get both of those on top of the live trading session that we'll have next Thursday. So I'm really excited about that because you'll actually be able to view then in real time what the profit recycling strategy is. You'll be able to put on the trades with me at the same time if we're getting the right signals, and you too will be able to make some money ideally for your account just like I am, right? So the combo package, like I said, is if you don't have anything, and it's a really great value right now. Just the class alone right now in the store is $6.97, and you can see here the combo package is $4.97. So not only are you getting a discount on the class, you're basically getting the indicator for free, the live trading session for free, and with the class, there is a bonus of an options chain class in there. Excuse me. And so for those of you who are new to trading, who are like, man, I really want to learn this strategy, but I'm not comfortable yet with the option chain. I'm not sure even what a delta is, or I'm not sure, what a vertical spread is or a butterfly is from what you mentioned. This option chains class is great for people new to trading. It dives into what you look at on the option chain itself. It dives into those strategies that we use here often at Simpler Trading. And so it's a great insight to the profit recycling class. This class, the profit recycling class itself, is 6 hours of content, guys. So I really dive in deep into the deltas that you look for, how you set up these trades to make it to where you're recycling risk back into your account, how you're making these free bonus trades both on intraday moves and a lot of detail. It also goes over more in depth the compound breakout tool and how to use that. So I really suggest, if this is a strategy that you're interested in, if you're tired of having too much risk out there overnight, or you want to be able to day trade but you have a smaller account, this is a great investment to be able to look at, and you really get a lot of education around it. There's also an e-learning module with it, so not only are you getting the class itself, but you also have ways to quiz yourself to see what you're understanding, see what you're missing out on. And on the e-learning module, there are timestamps there. So if you end up missing a question and getting it wrong, it will show you exactly where the answer is in the class to that question, and then you can kind of review it that way. Now, if you already have the compound breakout tool, but you're interested in this strategy, then there is, of course, the class package, right? Once again, excellent value. $297 for the class package. You don't need to worry about the compound breakout tool. You still get the bonus live trading session next week. You still get the profit recycling class, as well as the option chain bonus class that comes with it. That's over $1,000 value there. And if you're just interested in the indicator, you're like, I think I might be able to catch on with the profit recycling strategy in the live trading session, or maybe I don't really want to intraday trade or do too much of that. I just really want that tool. It looks great on the longer time frames. Then you can get the indicator package, $297. That's how much the compound breakout tool is. But of course, with that, you get the bonus of the live trading session next week, which is $197 value. And so you'll be able to join in with us on Thursday to really dive in and show how to use this tool, as well as this strategy in real-time live market hours. So I kind of talked about the packages some, but just to reiterate, the combo package is great if you don't have either one, because it is a excellent discount versus how much it costs in the store after this. So if you don't have the class or the indicator, this is the best package to go with. I use the tool with the strategy, right? You get a lot of education around both the tool and the strategy in that class. You have the e-learning module with it. It's over a $1,300 value, and you're looking at an investment of $497. For the class package, right, you get so if you already have the indicator by itself, maybe you've heard me talk about it in the room, and you want the class itself, you get the profit recycling class and that options chains class as an added bonus for $297. And once again, you still have access to that live trading day next Thursday. It will be Thursday, September 12th from 12 to 3 p.m. So for the last 3 hours of the trading day, we'll be joining in there, trying to find some profit recycling trades, trying to find some nice longer term setups with the compound breakout tool as well. And it's a great way, the live trading, to be able to recoup your investment on these packages, right? So whether you get the combo package or whether you get the class package or even just the indicator, right? If you just purely want the indicator, the live trading is a great way to help recoup that investment for yourself and ideally still be walking away with an overall profit. So it pays for itself in a way, ideally, right? That's my goal with the live trading. And that way it's almost like you've spent nothing. So with the compound breakout tool package, it's just the indicator by itself, but you still get that live trading day next week to be able to determine, how it works in real time, all the different little nuances that I look for within the indicator. So if you still had questions around that, I'd be able to help dive into that a bit more and answer those more directly. And certainly, once you have it, you have unlimited use to it, right? So once you get the indicator, you have unlimited access to everything. Once you get the class, you have unlimited access to everything in that as well. So, it's not a subscription fee or anything like that. It's just a one-time price. Once you get it, you're good to go. So that's, of course, a nice benefit to that. And like I said, the bonus live trading is a great way to do it. So if you do decide to jump into the class, right, the way I kind of like to look at it is, in college, you have the class, right? You have the lecture, and then you have the lab. And the live trading is like the lab. It's where you take everything that you learned in the lecture and use it in real time. And the best thing about this is the class, of course, has already been recorded. So as soon as you purchase the class, you have immediate access to it to watch it on your own time. And you can really take in the notes and everything prior to the live trading session so that when you go into it, you have an idea of what we're talking about. You're not completely lost because you've had immediate access. So, if you purchase it tonight, you have immediate access to be able to watch it tonight as well and use it. The indicator is available for both Thinkorswim and TradeStation. So it's available on 2 of the main platforms that we use. There's not much difference between the 2. The only difference is, let me pull up KMX here. The only difference here is instead of printing a box, whenever that signal first starts to print, like it does on Thinkorswim or a triangle up here, it just prints a bigger circle. But everything else about the indicator is still the same. Like I said, there should be nothing that you have to change internally about it on TradeStation, other than just maybe the colors if you don't want red or green. So once again, right, the 3 different packages. You can go to simplertrading.com/breakout to buy this if you're curious or you want more information around it. But this is definitely an excellent value if you don't have the compound breakout tool or the profit recycling class, right? Great value versus what it would cost in the store normally. And like I said, we get that bonus live trading day on Thursday, so you can really watch how it works in real time with me. And as you saw with some of those intraday trades, the trades can happen really quickly, right? That's the con of using these trades. Whenever I'm in the options trading room, is sometimes they're hard to alert. By the time I've jumped into a trade, I've had trades where they've covered within a minute or two and I'm already out. So by the time I try and send out an alert on it, I've technically already locked in my profit while the alert might just be getting to you to post. So unfortunately, it's hard to alert these trades sometimes. But if you're following along in real time during the live trading session, you're able to do it quite well and be able to lock in the profits with me. Other times it might take a few hours and to lock it in, and we'll discuss the reason behind that. And of course, if you're not able to attend the full bit of the live trading session, we're going to look at both longer term swing trades as well as profit recycling trades, right? So we'll look at longer term swing trades with the compound breakout tool. We'll also consider those intraday trades if we get the setup using the profit recycling strategy. But any trade I take on, unless it's one that happens really quickly, it will be alerted out. So even if you're not able to stay for the full live trading session, that will be alerted to you so you can get it on your phone and still try and follow along, right, with your trading platform on a smart device. And of course, these sessions will be recorded. So if you want to see how it works in real time and really follow along, but you might have a doctor's appointment or you might need to step out that day, these sessions will be recorded and available to you. So that way you can still try and get that education around how it works in real time live during the market hours itself. So at the end of the day, I wanted to give you an understanding of how the profit recycling strategy can help you engineer exponential growth with limited risk, right? I, maybe didn't get into the specifics on the strikes themselves that I use, but I showed you how in a small amount of time on intraday charts, as small as a few minutes to 18 minutes, as long as maybe an hour, that's to me a long time, but just within an hour of trading, how you can guarantee yourself a profit, right? Worst case scenario, you're still walking away with a profit for the day. You never triggered a day trading rule, and how that limiting of risk can help overall grow your account quite a bit. It's also a new way to be able to trade volatile markets without being on an emotional roller coaster. I know a lot of traders with these Trump tweets and tariffs going on and off and things like that have been kind of freaked out, even with the Fed news and everything like that. Are they going to do rate cuts? Are they going to do rate hikes? That uncertainty, that volatility that hits the markets. This is a great way to be able to trade them and not be stuck on that emotional roller coaster, not getting affected by the dark side of trading, but instead being able to manage through it, right? Guide yourself through it and still lock in profits without keeping that much risk on the table overnight, which is always nice in these sort of markets. I want to introduce new ways to take advantage of the intraday moves, right? That no pesky day trading rule to get in the way of being able to do it. So like I said, great for smaller accounts. Like I said, for my account, I had it starting at 10,000 and grew it up to 43,000 in just a few months by mainly using this strategy, the profit recycling strategy. And so, I certainly at the start was not able to day trade in that account, and I had to be very mindful of it. But by using this strategy, I could still take advantage of those intraday moves and not ever have to worry about triggering or having my account be frozen because I've gone over too many day trades. So I also wanted to give you more information about the compound breakout tool, how to use this tool to help identify the beginning and ending, as well as the different types of trends, right? We talked about how it shows you a bullish trend, a bearish trend, a consolidating trend, how it can help you determine the strategies for each of those trends, as well as when to maybe get out and take profits, or when you can still continue to hold on to a trade. And of course, last but not least, how to grow your account even if you have struggled in the past, right? I've been there, guys. I've been there with you, certainly as a new trader, and it's been frustrating when you get those losses. It's been frustrating trying to grow an account, especially when it's a smaller account, because those losses, seem so much bigger when you don't have much money in there to begin with. And so if you've ever struggled in the past growing an account, I hope that these tools can help you out just as much as they've helped me out in being able to grow an account successfully, and at the same time keeping that capital risk low. Lima, yeah, the minimum buying power needed for the class, it doesn't need to be very much. On my intraday style trades, the risk that I typically start off with might be anywhere from $50 per contract to $200 per contract. So even if you have a small account and you're just doing one contract, the risk starting off, I still keep relatively low for those intraday style trades and lock in profits. Now in the longer term swing trades, depending on the symbol it might be a little bit more expensive, but we'll talk about different strategies that you can use there to keep risk low during the live trading session and still take advantage of the signal from the compound breakout tool. So whether it's a long call or, a long debit call vertical spread or a call butterfly, right? We'll discuss the different strategies to use there so that no matter what size account you have, you should be able to take a trade off that signal. And of course, right, if you're, confused about what I'm saying here, what's a long debit call vertical spread? What's a call butterfly? Then really check out the profit recycling class bundle or the combo bundle, because in there you get the option chain class, and that is an excellent class for beginners to really understand what these strategies are, understand what the option chain is, and that's really going to help you with the profit recycling strategy itself. So Venkat, this is the early bird pricing for everything, right? So in real time, a day of live trading, right? That's the benefit here, guys. Next Thursday, we'll have the live trading session from 12 to 3, and you'll be able to watch me in real time identify setups using the compound breakout tool. We'll all be able to talk together, so if you have questions, I'll be answering them in real time as we're looking at signals. I'll show ways to implement, ideally, the profit recycling strategy, right? I'll talk about the criteria that I look for in the day, which, these past few months, it's certainly been within the criteria that I look for to take these trades on. But we'll discuss that live during market hours, and we'll see if we're not able to jump into a few trades and lock in some profits using the intraday method. So this is the early bird pricing. Like I said, it's a great discount, guys. The $697 profit recycling class alone in the course section right now is $697. But if you jump in here with the simplertrading.com/breakout link, you're getting everything here, right? You're getting a discount on the class. For free, you're getting the compound breakout tool. For free, you're getting the live trading session. And for free, you're basically getting the option chain class, all for $497. So outstanding deal to be able to get on. And so, like I said, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. I know we've already gone over the hour time, so I'll try to answer a few questions if I see a lot of the same question asked. Otherwise, of course, if you do have further questions and you've signed up for one, I'll definitely go into more questions after the live trading session, right? I'll leave the room open a little bit longer that day after the close of market, and we can really dive into some of these more intensive questions. Like if you have a specific question around the tool, or maybe you watch some of the class, you have a question about the strategy that you felt wasn't answered in there, please let me know, and I will be happy to answer that after the live trading session as well. Joseph, the components of the compound breakout tool are, there's several different signals. I take off 3 different indicators, and it's a stochastics indicator, the MACD histogram, and several different simple moving averages I use. So it's a combination of signals that I use off each of those indicators that create it. Yeah, not a problem. Dan, try reposting them. The chat's going really quickly, so I'm trying to keep up with the questions here, guys. And yeah, this can be used for stock trading as well, longer term. Like I said, the monthly time frame, the longer time frames can be great with the compound breakout tool. So if you are more a share trader, a stock trader, this is a great one to still consider getting into because it shows you great opportunities when to buy shares. And on the weekly, monthly time frames, it can show you how long to stay in those shares. And if they're really longer term picks for your account, right? If that signal starts to cancel out, that's the time to consider covered calls, right? If you want to really hold it long term, or to just get out of your shares and then look for another entry point. So the compound breakout tool is great for share buying as well as, you know, options trading. I'm definitely more an options trader myself, but I do hold shares in my account, and I have used this tool to help tell me, okay, this is where I want to get in. And okay, I do see this maybe canceling out. I still like, you know, the overall bullish trend, but I'm starting to get some signals here where I might want to consider a covered call, right? Take that shorter term profit and still keep the shares for a longer term portfolio pick overall. And there is a scan, guys, for the compound breakout tool that's available. So if you do sign up for that, I will be more than happy to share that scan with you in Thinkorswim. So that can certainly help you get a lot. Yeah, we will talk about how to avoid false signals, or how, you know, a signal might be going more into consolidation rather than printing a bullish or bearish signal. So we'll definitely address that in the live trading. There aren't really many false positives, right? It just depends on how quickly it might give you a signal that appears bullish and then goes into consolidation. So I'll show you what I personally do to help avoid jumping in maybe a little bit too soon on a bearish or bullish signal. It might mean that you miss a little bit of profit, right? Sometimes that happens, but it gives you that overall conservative view of not getting into false positives like you're mentioning, right? And by having those three together, it certainly clears up the false positives that I used to get on each indicator individually before I created that compound breakout tool. And here's the page for it. For those of you who are interested, this is what it looks like, right? Where you gives a description of the three packages, talks about the live trading. Here are the packages themselves. And like I said, for those of you who can't read the small writing up there, I don't blame you. But it's simplertrading.com/breakout. And I will post that link also in the alert section here as well. So it's right up top there for anyone who needs to use it. There's no upgrade to the tool, right? This is the tool I've been using since Eric first created it, you know, for me, and did the coding on it. It hasn't needed an upgrade. If there is ever an upgrade, I will definitely let you guys know. But as of right now, I've back tested this tool plenty of times before even releasing it here to the community, and I haven't found a need to, you know, upgrade it. It still works very nicely. Yeah, and Dan, this whole presentation will be recorded. It is available to you. So that is there. I do see the average winner or loser. I don't have that data right on me, but the benefit of the profit recycling strategy, if that's the one you're referring to, is if the signal starts to move against you, right? Let's say it was a bullish signal and then it starts to cancel out and maybe you haven't locked in that profit yet. There's still a way that you can at least reduce your initial capital risk, and we'll talk about that. So the best part about that strategy is even if you aren't able to lock in a profit for your account, more than likely you're still not taking that full capital risk on the trade that you put in. There's still a way to at least recoup the majority or a portion of that capital risk and then still have on a trade out there that still has a profit potential on it, but doesn't have as much capital risk either going into the close if it's like SPX and it's a same day cash settlement trade, or you know, you're not still holding that majority of risk overnight and then can evaluate it again the next day to see if you're able to close out for a profit. So typically speaking, the initial risk that you start off with, there's still ways to reduce it even if the signal starts to all of a sudden turn against you, which, like I said, on those tweet days, you know, all of a sudden you look like you're going up and then it moves down, right? So if you had a signal looking to go high and then it starts to reverse on you, there are ways that you can still reduce that initial capital risk. And Sam, yes, in the class, I do go over how I go from the initial capital risk to the locked-in profit. And I also discuss how there's that extra profit potentially into the close or into the next day of trading, depending on what expiration you have for the profit recycling strategy. And yes, if you already have the class, right, if you already have the indicator, maybe you jumped in whenever I did this last December, or you've just bought it over time, you will be invited to the bonus live trading day next Thursday. So, you already have the benefit of being able to join us there. You will get a link for it. So I look forward to seeing y'all again. I really want to be able to make it so that, ideally, I can't promise anything, of course, but ideally during these live trading sessions, I can get you a return on your investment, right? So by getting the class, by getting the indicator, you're investing in your trading, you're investing in your education on how to control or keep that risk low. And that's why I like doing these live trading days that follow, some time later. This one's almost a year later that we're doing this, but it's a great way that, if you've purchased it once, you can jump back in for another live trading day, and we can once again try and get even more profits to help have paid, or if not, make, a very nice return on your investment that you took. And the compound breakout tool should be sent to you immediately once you purchase the class or one of the the tool should be available to you immediately. If you purchase the indicator package or compound package, you'll be sent it in an email. Just let them know, if it's Thinkorswim or TradeStation that you're looking for. And same thing with the class. If you purchase the class package or the combo package, that will be made available to you immediately. So if you really wanted to jump into your education tonight, maybe you live in California, right, and you have some more hours left in your day, you're able to immediately start watching the class or reviewing that information. And both the options chain class and the profit recycling class have e-learning modules on them. So you can really quiz yourself on the information for both those classes and test out what, is able to sink in and what you might need a little bit more work on. And of course, keep in mind, write down your questions. Let me know during the live trading. Feel free to send me an email. I do get a lot of emails, so, maybe save it for the live trading, but otherwise, I do try and get back to everybody who does email me, and I'll be more than happy to answer your question there. So that, we're starting to get close. Don't want to keep people here too long. I'm trying to run through and see all the other questions. They're still coming in quite a bit, so I apologize if I missed yours. And yeah, like I mentioned, if you already have the class or the indicator or both, you will be able to join in on the live trading session absolutely next week. Bill, yeah, I use a combination of long calls, long puts. For the compound breakout tool, it depends on the signal I'm getting. For example, SPX has been printing until today a bit more of a consolidated signal. So I jumped into a consolidating non-directional type trade like a butterfly to make money off of. When it gives a more bullish or bearish trade view, then I'll jump into long calls, long puts, using the profit recycling strategy and recycle that back into my account without day trading. Or sometimes it will be long debit call vertical spreads or long, call or put butterflies, depending on if I think it's moving up to a certain level and then stalling. And we'll talk about that, of course, in the live trading session a bit more. All right, it all depends on what you're seeing, technically speaking. And great, I see a lot of you are looking forward to it. I am too. I can't wait to do that. And Raj, you will get a recording. So if you're already in here, or if you signed up, and maybe left early, which you're not hearing this, but all of this has been recorded, and you will get a recording of this webinar sent to you. Yeah, SP, yeah. I think the bonus class is definitely a benefit for the option chain class. I wanted to make sure that's available because I think the profit recycling strategy is great for working on small accounts, and oftentimes new traders have smaller accounts. So, to kind of get past that hurdle and still be able to keep your risk low and maybe bypass some of the pitfalls that I fell into when I first started trading on capital risk, That's why I wanted to make that options chain class available to you guys as well. And yeah, so all of this you'll get immediately, right? So the class you get immediately once you purchase it, the indicator, same thing. And then the live trading day, I don't see it on here, but the live trading day will be, I'll type it out here, Thursday, next Thursday, so September, I believe that's the 13th, no, 12th, excuse me, September 12th, that Thursday, and it will be 12 to 3 p.m. Central. So it'll be the last 3 hours going into the close of market for live trading. And yeah, Tova, the profit recycling, we'll do during the live trading ideally, right? If we get the setup, I'll definitely look for jumping into a trade. But the actual class itself has already been recorded, so it's immediately available to start watching today, or if you want to watch it this weekend or early next week, you can watch it whenever you want, you know, prior to the live trading, and you'll still have access to it afterwards, right? You have unlimited access to that class to watch it. And you can email me at allison@simplertrading.com, or feel free to email support, right? If it might be a question that they actually already have an answer cheat sheet to, and they're, of course, usually a lot quicker at getting back to you guys with the emails and the workforce that is behind support here at Simpler Trading. But if it's a question they can't answer, they'll always send it on to me, and I'm more than happy to help answer that question for you. But it's very simple, allison@simplertrading.com, just my name, and that's how you can email me. And Andy, you can do it on ES option trades. So I don't know if you can do it I don't really trade futures, to be honest. But if you do option trades on futures, right, if you do contracts on the option contracts on the ES or something like that, you should still be able to use this strategy doing it on there as well. But if it's straight futures contracts, I'm not sure if you're able to use this strategy in that. And Les, I'll post the scanner on the live trading day to make it available to you guys. So I don't think it's in the class information. And it's mainly for the compound breakout tool, but I will make sure to post that on the live trading day next Thursday for sure. And eRich, you should be able to get it for both platforms. Just talk to customer support about that, but they should be able to help you out there. Sam, I might do that. I don't see a reason why I won't be able to take any trades, right? There's definitely, you know, just this week that I've been looking at some longer term trade setups on the compound breakout tool. And there are always symbols that I'm able to use for the profit recycling. So even if SPX isn't quite meeting the criteria that day, usually Amazon does, even on slower market days. So we might just switch over to Amazon rather than SPX and look at it using a profit recycling intraday trade there instead. And yeah, you can use these on ETFs as well. I've used these on SPY before. Now, of course, you know, SPY doesn't move as much as SPX, so you might not be getting as big of a profit per contract, but certainly less capital risk too, right? So we'll talk about the pros and cons to that with SPX. I do talk about that some in the profit recycling class as well. And Joel, yeah, the options chain class is recorded as well. So both of those are recorded and good to go to watch immediately. Both of those already have e-learning modules around them. So if you immediately watch the class and want to quiz yourself, you're absolutely able to. But I'm going to close it out here. I know I've missed quite a bit of questions. Like I said, they're, you know, a lot more of you than me. They're coming in rather quickly. But I hope I covered the majority of your questions, or at least a good chunk of them. Like I said, if you still have any, please feel free to email support or email myself, and I'll be happy to get back to you. Some of these questions are answered, you know, within the class itself, and certainly we'll dive into more detail on the live trading day. As I mentioned, I'll hold the room open past 3, right? We'll trade from 12 to 3, but I'll hold the room open past 3. And if you have any more in-depth questions about the indicator or about the strategy, I'll be happy to address them there as well. And keep in mind, you'll have a recording of the live trading session, which means you'll have a recording of that Q&A session afterwards as well. So if you're, only able to be around for the first hour or two of live trading, but you want those questions answered, you'll have that recording to go back and reference to for that. So yeah, thanks guys for joining me. I hope you had a wonderful time and a safe night. As always, may the trade be with you, and hopefully the trade is with us on Thursday. And I look forward to talking to y'all again tomorrow for the options member in the options room, as well as in the training room. Otherwise, I will hopefully see you guys next Thursday. Bye.